Hey guys, it's Eric. Okay, a new envy video, first in 7 months, which I was happy to see that. Good, healthy break from the topic for my own sake, for anybody who's watching or listening's sake. Not good to fixate on envious people. However, it is good in the contrary to air our feelings about them and about the experience of being envied or perhaps even feeling envious, because it's not something that gets spoken of. It's very taboo. And across those 7 months, I had plenty of days where I was like, ooh, I can do a video on this. I can do a video on that. Okay, I can touch on this. But happily, I realized that in the handful of other videos on the topic that are up here, I already weighed in on similar points or adjacent points or even the exact same point I had said in some other way, in some other context. So I was happy about that. I was like, okay, well, that means it's not, I don't have copious amounts of thoughts on the topic. It's not like I could fill a book with them. There's a pretty standard set of symptoms when it comes to envy. Although a story in the news, a horrific story, led me to dial in on one other component of envy that I've never spoken of, because I'm always framing it in the interpersonal sense of you or us, me, and the envious person. And this story about the murder, the apparent murder, seeming murder of Shanquella Robinson in Cabo, Mexico, very apparently has the component of an envious friend group. And I've never thought to speak about that. And it's a very poisonous dynamic. And it's also, I feel a little mixed and taboo about going here. It's current events, news stories shift and change. The video can become dated quickly in the sense of new information will come to light. Maybe envy was not a motive here. It seems very, very apparent she was murdered. To the point where me even saying it's apparent seems annoying and offensive. Like, anybody with eyes who saw the video from the resort where her and her friends were staying and they were beating on her. One of them was, and the others were joking and videotaping it. Can see there was, violence and other things have come to light. Before I go into it, excuse me, I want to be clear that I work as a journalist. And one thing that is against the code of good journalism is to ascribe or speculate as to motive. And I'm violating that. I'm completely violating that for this video. Intuitively, I do think envy was present in the story. When my wife first told me about this story, one thing she highlighted was that Shanquella, who was murdered, was a successful entrepreneur. And as soon as I heard that, my bias kicked in and I was like, whoever did this was probably envious. Because if she was experiencing success and then she was 25 years old, so it was probably new success, somebody in her life that was not keeping up got resentful and it just went from there. That was my initial thought. But then a new detail came to light. I'm not sure if this has been confirmed, but I've seen news stories that Shanquella's father noted that she had paid for the resort where her and her friends stayed, to the tune of, I think, $6,000, which is a lot for a trip, particularly among friends, and particularly for her springing for everyone. So that underlines, my immediate bias perception of, okay, she was successful and meaningfully successful. It's not like she just had a burgeoning business or an idea for a business and somebody was threatened. Like, it was actually, she was off to the races. Things were going well for her. So with that in mind, the circumstances of her death, her murder, seemed very dependent upon a very specific ecosystem or body politic among her friends, plural. Now, in the video, one friend is beating her, but the other friends are not intervening. They're videotaping. At least two of them are videotaping it. And one of them is making fun of Shanquella for not fighting back. They're also in isolation. I don't know where the resort is geographically, but they're at a resort. I mean, they're like away somewhere. They're also away from home, which is North Carolina. So all these compounded factors are sort of interlocking. I'm trying to make the point that it wasn't one-to-one. It seemed like the violence, which led to the murder, was all dependent upon the group. And I'm going to go as far as to speculate, since this is not journalism, I'm just commenting, I'm going to go as far as to speculate that the group was envious. So I just want to comment on envious friend groups, which is a whole other thing. And it's so poisonous and toxic that in and of itself, even apart from the murder, it's hard to talk about because it's frightening. Because with an envious group, whether it's friends or colleagues or people in your community or some other setting, they're all cross-verifying their perception of the envied party. They're all agreeing that the person they envy sucks, is obnoxious, is deserving of disdain and being ousted. This also happens in social media, of course, with pile-on, online mobbing. Oftentimes it happens because the person who's getting mobbed said something despicable or reprehensible, which is a different moral paradigm. But oftentimes it happens just because those doing the piling on are looking for an excuse to oust the one being piled on and to express basic disdain and often to express basic inferiority. So one element of what really cut me with the story and was painful is that she was treating her friends. Absent any notion of the particularities of her personality, moment to moment, that says a lot. She's treating them. And if she was newly successful, again, being 25, she's only an adult for, 5 to 7 years, right? So if she's newly successful, it could be a shock to her friends. And I can speculate that from the eyes of the newly successful party, if your friends are not doing as well as you, one thing you can do is be generous and be nice and treat. And that's a completely normal and healthy and generous, good-hearted instinct. Like, they don't have what I have. I'm going to treat. We're all going to have a good time. But boy, is that a mistake when somebody's envious of you. And that's not the main message. I'm going to title this video, I'm going to put the word warning in the label. There's a core warning. That's a sub-message about if somebody is envious of you, and indeed, in all likelihood, because of their envy, disdains you, you cannot set things right by being generous. You'll only, for them, highlight and exacerbate their sense of inferiority. It's a shame, because from the envied party's point of view, it's like, okay, well, let me just help. Let me help that person up. And it's no big deal. They can be successful or they can rise too. But man, it only makes everything worse because that person in their moment-to-moment, day-to-day life feels just stuck and impotent and like things aren't going right and they can't get anywhere. And then your mere existence is a living testament to everything that they lack. So helping them is just poking the beehive. I want to make clear also, this is not victim blaming because there's been very well-placed talk online about don't just boil this down to, oh, be careful who your friends are. And I agree with that. This is not a be careful who your friends are video. I mean, that's ridiculous. Nobody deserves to be murdered. Nobody. My message, my warning when it comes to envious friend groups or groups of people is to be very sober in your assessment of two things. Number one, are you doing better than they are? That's the mainframe assessment because that helps you discover whether or not they may indeed be envious. And if that assessment is murky or mixed or it might break even, like, oh man, I'm doing well over here, but they're doing well over there might not be envy. It could be your ego deceiving you. So you have to be sober, take a look, take an accounting of all things in life, personal, financial, romantic, health, basic mental, physical health, physical comfort, shelter. Take a look at yourself, take a look at them. Try and soberly, without your ego, assess who, quote unquote, is doing better. And I say quote unquote because things change. Like, I've been with my wife for 25 years, married for 18. There have been plenty of points where career-wise, she's way out in front. There have been plenty of points where career-wise, I'm way out in front. Even the words way out in front sound profane because we're in it together. We're not competing with one another. We share our lives. We share our life. The point is that things shift and change. But in this moment where envy is a possibility, just take a look. And in this case, for the case of the current discussion, take a look at the group. Like, are you the one that's shining in the group? And is it true? Are you the one who's shining in the group? And this is just to establish the foundational presence or lack of envy. And presuming the presence of envy is confirmable or reasonable, this goes to the second part of what's healthy to assess in terms of who you want to stay around and have near you and who you are wiser to avoid. You have to take a look at those people and see if they're doing anything to improve themselves every day. And I mean anything. I don't mean like it has to be some, rip-roaring Instagram video where they're eating like 12 raw eggs and then doing 400 clap push-ups and running up a mountain, and their life is a monument of inspiration and triumphant music is playing. I just mean, are they doing anything to inch their way forward? They're working on a project. They're working on their health. They're apologizing to people. They're making inroads in some way. They're applying for a job. They're studying for something. And it's a sincere, daily or most days effort. Is that there? If that's there, there's no real urgent need to have distance from the person unless the person is being negative toward you. If there's this sort of creeping, insidious undertone of envy, but in general, the relationship is peaceful, and that person, most importantly or more importantly, is geared toward improving themselves, it's not unhealthy or I think particularly dangerous or risky to have that person around you. It's when that person's doing nothing that I would absolutely run the other way. And compoundedly, it's when a group is doing nothing. If it's a group of like stuck, shithead, low people that are all envious and emanating envy, and they're not improving themselves in any way. Quite the contrary, they're keeping each other down, right? That's the inner part of what's going on. There's the envied party. In the case of this news story, Shanquella Robinson, she's being envied and the group is all interweaving and commingling to foster their envy, so it becomes a cesspool and it becomes dually dangerous, like jointly dangerous among them, and they all cross-validate and becomes poisonous. That's toward her. But think of what's going on internally within the group. They're all holding each other down. They're all like completely disempowering each other from not just success, like in the careerist professional sense, but any sort of growth or progress or inspiration. And that's a nightmare. That is an absolute human nightmare that only leads to dark places. And I've talked before in these videos about dangerous places, the implication being that these people can hurt you emotionally or destroy your reputation or try and deprive you of, your job or whatever form of attack they're going to take. But I just want to underscore here that the attack, obviously, needless to say, can actually be violent also and can hurt you and kill you. And with a group dynamic, it's just that much more frightening because it becomes a closed system, the group. It becomes a bubble. And amongst themselves, they are digging in, retracing, re-emphasizing all day long the idea that you're the bad guy because they envy you. So whatever you got did not come to you by merit. Your personality has changed. You become obnoxious. You're holier than thou. All this stuff. And they've just revised you. They've shifted the focus and aperture in their heads to make you into the bad person and indeed deserving of spite and scorn and perhaps even violence. And it's horrifying. So a group can really do a number on you. They can derail you in a way that an individual can. And because envious people or people that are ruled by envy tend to be weak, they will thrive in a group dynamic because they only have to hold up their little end of the group and nobody has to do all the heavy lifting. And that's literally, I think what you're seeing in that video when people are ganging up on Shanquella, like I don't think any one of them could have done it individually without the others. Whether it's the person committing the actual violence, she needed the others cheering her on and validating her. And then she was also with her fists expressing the anger and animosity of the people that weren't helping in some way or another. That's my speculation. More will come out as to motive and circumstances, I have no doubt. And more importantly than anything I've said, I can only pray for her family, and that's a horrifically banal and futile thing to say, but it was a horrific crime, and I felt certain that the presence of envy was in front of us in a group dynamic. So if you're within such a group and they're doing nothing to excel, nothing, and their trajectory is downward, and they're cross-validating themselves within their own bubble of entropy, get out.